First of all, thanks for taking the time to listen to everybody's comments. My wife spoke earlier,
Yeah,
so
I realized that.
yeah,
Thank you.
unless you want to give her another 3 minutes. So to Mr. Parker's point, who spoke earlier just before me, he mentioned that he lives next door across from Pleasant Valley. I live right next to San Ramon. It's in my backyard, and all of the neighbors there actually enjoy all the music and the kids exercising, and it's great to start your way with athletics. And there's been no objection from our community near San Ramon around that noise, so we enjoy that. A couple of points brought up earlier. Mr. Chastain talked about the exemptions that you all took, and I know you all voted in favor of it unanimously. Mind you that government code exemption, I think you know, it does not exempt you from ordinances for non-classroom projects. Arguably, the football field is or is not a classroom. That's something that is arguable. The need for more practice time. What about spending some of this money on a new field for San Ramon? Put some synthetic turf over there, and you can walk the kids across the street, and they can have virtually as much field time as they want. There's nobody over there in the afternoons. Okay, a few other points. The final EIR lists a primary objective of the project to provide extended availability of the athletic fields to improve academic performance by minimizing early class dismissal and missed instructional time for student athletes. This objective presumes that the current performance is subpar, even though there is no data within the EIR to support this assertion. In fact, data gleaned from the California Department of Education shows a very different picture. Marin County as a whole has the highest graduation rate of all 9 Bay Area counties. Within Marin, the graduation rate is highest among schools that do not have lights. In fact, Tamales and San Rafael with lights rank at the bottom end of the scale. When you drill down a little deeper, the aggregate SAT reasoning scores are lowest amongst the 2 schools with lights. Generally, high schools without lights do better. Is there a nexus? More research is needed to reduce the variability. That said, you must use good data to drive your decision-making process. It cannot be made on hearsay and assumption. The final EIR addresses the impact that the lights would have on nearby residential dwellings. The classification of the area around San Marin is E3. It is allowable to have 10,000 candelas in an E3 designation. Unfortunately, the design, or rather the designations are assigned by census tract. You've been already detailed on what E1, E2, and E3 is. If your area is not E1 or E2, it's automatically classified as E3, which is urban. San Marin is classified in the same way as San Francisco and Oakland. There is no true suburban classification. And I'll sum it up. It's your job to identify and note those idiosyncrasies. You have to draw it down to the details. And the very last thing I want to say is that the residents of the San Marin community have been good neighbors for many years. We ask the trustees show empathy for those that live in the neighborhood in the same way that they ask their students to practice this character as identified in the graduate profile that you approved last year. What better way to lead than by example? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Schaefer, and thanks so much for letting us talk tonight. So I've lived on San Marin Drive for 25 years, and I was a school teacher for 8 years, and I'm a youth development professional who works with over 400 kids ages 8 to 17 each summer. I'm a parent of 2 sons who are currently a senior and a freshman at San Marin High School. My initial reason for being here was my exasperation when my oldest son was a sophomore and joined the soccer team and left school for about an hour and 20 minutes every single week for most of that season and missed a class that he was a bit challenged in. And I couldn't understand why in the world he would have to leave school at whatever time it was, 12:45 or something. But then I came to understand that it was because the field doesn't have lights, and that's what drove that decision. So that was my major concern. After being here tonight, though, I'm fascinated by the discussion, and I have to say, although I have huge respect for the neighbors and their concerns, some of These neighbors are very dear friends. I'm a bit saddened by the lack of support for very few neighbors who are opposed. There's no doubt in my mind that there are hundreds and hundreds in favor. The school community certainly is by the majority, from my understanding with many conversations. There's no doubt in my mind that these lights will benefit the community at large. Drawing people out of their homes and away from their screens in the evening is always a good thing. When those people are coming together, you know, in a healthy pursuit, doing something fun as a community. And if the lights are off by 8:30 on game nights, which is sort of the latest estimate for a typical game, with all due respect to the neighbor who was wearing the cool t-shirt, you will have several hours to watch the Milky Way after those lights are off. We don't live in a convalescent community. We live in a vibrant community full of families and athletes and neighbors who are sort of desperate, really, from my experience here, to have fun opportunities to get together outside in the neighborhood. And although I certainly do respect some of the concerns, and those are certainly legitimate, I think that by and large, there's no doubt in my mind that this is of huge benefit to our community. So I would ask you to please approve this EIR and get these lights installed just as soon as possible.
Not be sufficient. Parking demand for evening stadium events may need to be accommodated in the surrounding neighborhoods. There is no doubt that the surrounding neighborhoods will be heavily impacted by the influx of vehicles. The traffic and parking appendix contained within the EIR is potentially flawed. The methodology used for calculating the trip generation rates for high school sports stadiums is not available per the author. The plan calculates the parking needs for the average game, says that surrounding streets can accommodate 623. Just to summarize, it could end up being up over 1,000. And where's the mitigation for that? Lastly, the noise cannot be mitigated. And this is a key to significantly a good reason not to certify this EIR. So I am asking you to please listen to everyone's concerns and learn public opinions and exercise the proper response to reject this EIR. Thank you.
And lifelong Marin County resident, the last 30 years. I've been, for the last 20 years, I've been here in Novato. I had a 30-year public service career, and 5 years of that, I was a government regulator. I'm very familiar with the CEQA project. And I've monitored this as it goes along, and you can always find problems within any document of that size. This one seems, from many that I've been familiar with, looks to be quite a quality document. I'd like to just mention, when I bought my house in 1999, I saw Pleasant Valley School there. Nobody gave me any guarantees that nothing was going to change at that school. And things have changed. The enrollment has gone up dramatically. The PA system at the baseball field was repaired. And about 3 years ago, they put in a PA system so the kids could go out and exercise every morning. And the neighborhood was in enough for it. It was the end of our neighborhood as we knew it. And fortunately, there was enough people that said, hey, do you see the kids out there exercising? That's a good thing. Yeah, it might be a little pain here every once in a while, but look at what a good thing's happening. The roar subsided, and right now I defy you to go find anybody who will say it's bothering them. And I didn't even notice, I basically don't even notice it anymore until I was reading some issues about this particular issue, coming back to look at the world's going to fall if we allow this to occur. Within the EIR, I think it lists the 6 benefits of this project that are very significant. And it doesn't estimate the amount of increase in the quality of our athletes by an increase in play time is the only thing that's not mentioned. And there will be some impacts, as everybody has mentioned here. But I think we're holding a magnifying glass to those impacts. And the real question here are the benefits, which are very tangible, which some people say they aren't. Do those outweigh the mitigations or the issues to the residents most impacted? And are those impacts so significant that it's truly going to drain property values or quality of life? And I think the EIR did a very good job of looking at those on a factual basis, not on an emotional basis. There's no guarantees, nothing's going to change in your life. You know, things do change, and we recognize that when we buy properties. We don't get the assurances. And I'm looking at this EIR, it really addresses these concerns to the point that I think that both the EIR is a wonderful document, not wonderful, but it's a very well thought out document. And that the bottom question would come down to looking at the pluses and minuses, that we really do need these field lights. My kids will not be benefiting from them. They're indoor sports. So, but I plan on staying in Novato, and I will be going down and seeing sports hopefully in the lighted stadium for many years to come.
Very quickly just highlight. The EIR should not be certified because in fact it fails to address many of the environmental impacts by stating in conclusory fashion that these concerns are less than significant and therefore do not merit further discussion. And one case in point is the biological resources, which should be addressed, and the effects on avians and wildlife are dismissed as being unimportant and less than significant on the basis of a desktop study. And the Audubon Society, as well as the Department of Fish and Wildlife officials, have stated that field studies should have been required in that case, and they were not done. The EIR should not be certified because it fails to adequately address community concerns regarding the light and glare impacts, which are significant and potentially not mitigable. There was no photometric study done, which to me just, I don't understand how you could go forward without one. The EIR fails to address the Novato residents' legitimate concerns regarding the placement of up to 44 standards. It laughably states that the views are still visible and that there are slivers that are removed, as if you could take 44 standards and look around them. And that's what the report asks us to do. And in fact, you should have put up story poles. And you didn't do that because to do so would show the neighborhood and the entire community what it would look like to have a height of 80 feet on eight of these poles. I'm going to briefly talk about CEQA, which requires a mandatory finding of significance for a project with possible environmental effects, which may be individually limited but cumulatively considerable. The combination of light pollution, sky glare, aesthetics, noise, traffic, public safety concerns, and the inadequately reviewed biological resources of our community require a CEQA-mandated statement of overriding considerations. The NUSD Board of Trustees must provide to the community specific reasons why the project benefits outweigh all of the many adverse impacts. The project clearly fails to meet CEQA certification standards concerning the noted significant impacts and resulting environmental degradation versus the need for stadium lights. As you are aware, Marin County planners last week came out against an almost identical stadium lights project planned at Marin Catholic. Our community is confronting the same issues here in Novato, however, without the civic oversight which the affected neighborhoods deserve but are being denied because of NUSD's decision pursuant to Government Code Section 53094 to opt out of the city and county ordinances which provide necessary protections for our community. The basis for the legal decision which allowed NUSD to opt out, that is, that an athletic field is somehow an extension of the classroom, is a concept, and I'm just going to summarize here, is a concept which is not considered settled law in this state. And I bring this up because NUSD is likely signing up to defend a lawsuit if you move forward with this project. In conclusion, I ask you, does this EIR attempt to meaningfully explore the issues a project of this scope demands, and do you as elected officials who are responsible for the decisions and you are answerable to the community you represent, believe you have the right to ignore the significant negative impact on citizens who live in the neighborhoods surrounding San Marin High? And I believe the answer is no. Thank you.
My name is Alex Hawcock, a longtime resident of San Marin, lived here since 1978. Currently, I reside about a quarter mile from San Marin High School. I'm for the lights. I understand a lot of the concerns that people do have here, but I thought about how there's so many things that I could say. But I think, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the positives really outweigh the negatives here. And again, I'm not dismissing people, the concerns that they have. I think some of them are legitimate concerns. But, you know, my wife is from Portland, Oregon, and when she comes down here, she just can't believe it. She says, you know, having gone to a high school with lights, she said to me so many times, it's such a great experience for her and her family and the community. And yeah, I'm absolutely for this. I think it would be a great place, and it sounds like after hearing the report, it's a dozen nights a year. So again, I think the impact, the negative impact is far less than the advantages of the community of San Marin. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Ken Levin, and I am against the Lights Project, and I hope you do not certify the FDIR because I do think it's effective. I'd like to read a quote from Michael Graff, a letter that was sent to you today as the attorney for the Coalition of State of San Marin. In that letter, he disputes some information that Mr. Leiter gave you from Rincon Group, and I think it's important because it goes to the classification of the neighborhood to the north of the school as either zone E3 or E2. Mr. Graff says, the actual definition for the E2 zone is not, as Mr. Leiter said, sparsely inhabited rural areas, but instead areas of low ambient brightness, outer urban or rural residential areas. In contrast, the E3 zone is defined as areas of medium ambient brightness, urban residential areas. Now, the area at Hillside High was E3. I sent you a density map showing there's a significant density difference between the area around Hillside High and Novato area, and I do think, based on lighting experts I have spoken to and research I've done, that E2 is the proper zone, and I do suggest you not accept what Rincon says just at face value, and I'm going to give you examples of where they really failed. They did discount many of the ER comments as opinions. When I challenged Rincon in my letter, which is number 137, for not properly disclosing the design light intensity of the project, it said, and I'm quoting, the draft DIR does not report the illumination design level for the proposed project. How can an EIR about lights projects fail to disclose the planned intensity of the lights? How can I do that? So Rincon withheld this information in the initial EIR, and they tried to dismiss my assertion by claiming in response 137.3 that the commenter states an opinion that the illumination design level at Hillside High is 40-foot candles, and that the illumination design level at San Marin High School would be 50-foot candles. That's true. How do I know it's true? The Carducci report on page 16 shows that the design level of the San Marin project was 50-foot candles. And the preliminary photometric analysis, which is not a photometric analysis, it was based on 50. Look at the grid in the little football area, and you'll see all these numbers in the 50s. You have defective, incomplete information. You cannot make a proper decision if you want to be adequately informed. The FDR cannot be certified with these basic and fundamental emissions if it's to be compliant with CEQA. Rincon claims the project is properly classified according to CEI zone E3, and yet they use a spillover light standard of 2-foot candles instead of the 0.8-foot candles suggested by CEIE for zone E3. If the zone is E2, that standard is 0.3. That means the permitted amount of light spillover is 250% if they use the 2-foot candle standard versus 0.8, and 666% if they use 0.3. I submitted many of these comments to you in writing. I don't have time within my 3 minutes to go through them. One of them I will certify, and I'll close. I physically measured the sound noise from football games at San Marin High during the daytime to be over 80 dB at my home. If you look at those tables in the EIR, they are defective. I am an engineer, and I've got experience working with sound calculations. It is a fake body of evidence. It's what they call fake news. Thank you.
I live with my family with 3 boys on San Ramon Way. Our property backs up directly to the San Marin fields. We, as a family, are in favor of the lights, and I think a lot of the points that people made here today, I would just be reiterating, but it's, I grew up, and those lights, if I remember correctly, 25 years ago, went till 10 p.m. And what that offered the community and the children was a safe place to be kids, to be active, to socialize, and really, support their community in many different ways. And I think some of the points that were brought up earlier about how this really brings the community together, that can't be understated of what this really potentially can bring to Novato. With such a large community, with very successful and active schools, including the sports programs, I really only see a potential upside for these lights. I look forward to the opportunity to sit down with my neighbors, my fellow Novatans, and enjoy a very safe and productive and entertaining evening, cheering on and supporting our kids and each other. That's what it really comes down to. There'll be a lot of benefit even beyond the sports fans and support and the growth of the community that, quite honestly, is probably not as strong as people would hope it would want it to be at this point.
Hi, my name is Chris Eddy. I am a resident on 56 San Marin Drive, so the impact here does affect me very greatly because from the 20-yard line over, that's where I live. When my just about to be wife and I purchased the house 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, we anticipated we're going to be living next to a high school, which is great. I grew up in this town since 1968, went to Novato High School. I believe in sports. I still play in sports in Novato, under lights, up at IBC. But the effect and the impact it will have on our short community end right there is, first off, the Rincon people never approached us. I'm asking us what it would look like from our property over to the field. So that was kind of a mistake, I believe, on your end. The other thing was that the 80-foot stanchion light systems, did you know that those actually were going to stand up higher on the football field, not to the ground level where we are. So you're going to have to add another 10, 15, possibly 20 feet to that. So our view of the hill behind there that I love to run on, and Mount Friedel, since I've known for many, many years, is now going to be affected by its, we're just not going to get views anymore. And as far as this is just for the EIRs, and I don't want to get into the whole other thing. Just the fact that it just came about so quickly upon us, I don't think that we would have purchased our property if we knew this was going to start happening. So that's all I'm saying.
Hey, first off, I want to thank you guys. I mean, honestly, I think this is uncharted waters for Novato Unified, and I think for anybody in Marin County. I thank you, I think from all the parents that I'm involved with, for doing this for our kids, and having a little vision and trying to figure out how to get through these issues. No matter what is being said around here at this point in time, I've been involved in this process. I believe it began pretty much in earnest in January of 2016. So a year and a half to me, even more. You've done a great job. You've gone above and beyond what's required by state law. So I applaud you guys for that. There's a couple questions here. I wasn't going to go to some of these points. There was a point made about the lights and how we came up with the numbers and everything. I don't think whoever was talking about that, what was said was we took out all the alternative schools, the Catholic schools that had, the alternative schools that had no sports programs, got rid of them, got rid of the Catholic schools, went strictly to public schools. Okay? That's how we got to the 897. I think you go to Wikipedia, you can do a quick count. It's really easy. It's not that hard. So, funding. That was brought up here. I'm involved with all that. I'm involved with boosters heavily. I think some of you have been up there at San Marin High School. We put a lot of time and money up there already. We're ready to go for this. We're going to take a part in this, and you got our pledge that we're going to pay our part. So I think lastly, I think we all went to Hillsdale High School. and I'm not this photometrics guy, I'm not, you know, I don't know all these numbers they're all talking about, but I'll just tell you, we were all there. We all heard the PA. We all heard the lights. Us. A few of my boosters, friends, and a couple of these people. I mean, they had a real chance to see what was going on there, what was getting put into San Marin High School. They didn't take advantage of it. All right, I'm hearing no one's seen renderings, no one's seen photometrics. Our group spent $10,000 to create it. We had 3 separate meetings with these guys. They didn't take any of them. They didn't want to see them. So, to take that at face value, I'm sorry. They had the opportunity. I know they're not gospel, but it showed you a heck of a lot more than that drawing that Save San Marin Coalition is going around with. It's an absolute farce. So it really, that's a real tough one to take there when I hear they didn't have opportunities. Anyway, thank you very much, and let's get the lights.
Good evening. My name is Tim Erickson. I have lived across from the high school for 22 years. When we moved in there, we understood we were, everybody hear me okay? I understood that we were moving in near a high school. Didn't have a problem with that. Still don't have a problem with that. Even when, after the President's sporting events happen, and there is trash to be picked up, and that's one thing that's not been addressed. When the event is over, it's as though there's a magic wand going to be wiped and everything's going to be still and quiet. That's not going to happen. It doesn't happen right now. And now you're talking about doing it and having the access to do it 5 nights a week. During the weeknights, let alone weekends. The noise level right now, and I'm not, once again, I'm not talking about during the event. I understand there's going to be games. That actually doesn't bother me. The noise level afterwards, trying to sleep. I don't know, right now I'm woken up sometimes at night because there's young people having a good time. When I was a kid, I had a good time too. But we had a term when we were kids. It was like, hey, be cool. You know, keep it down. That doesn't exist anymore. So my concern is not during the event, it's the hours after.
Thank you for everybody being here tonight. I do want to commend coaches and teachers at San Marin for bringing the students here tonight. And for the students, I commend you for being here as well. I appreciate your input because we do care about you in the community. I have 2 children as well. They go to San Marin. And there was one lady that commented a minute ago about needing the lights to draw their children outdoors. I would encourage you to walk up Mount Verdell. I think I probably caught 400 blue-bellied lizards, and we call turkeys all the time up there. It reminds me of being back home in the South where I grew up. We had lights too for football, because it happens to be pretty big in the South too, but it was 20 miles outside of town. We didn't allow it in residential areas. The EIR was faulty on multiple levels. It was incomplete at LT2. LT1 was selection bias. And there were no samples taken on Sandy Creek Way. It shows a disregard for the wildlife. If anybody knows anything about wildlife, there are a lot of nocturnal animals. They don't get up and hang out around football during the daytime. They do it at night. So the lights are even disturbing them. There are a lot of wildlife there. And it also admits an inability to mitigate the noise, which I think a lot of people have spoken about already, so I won't get into that. I think the real thing that I'm concerned about hearing tonight is the lack of critical thinking in this room. Needs versus wants is basic critical thinking in economics 101. A want is something I would like to have, but without, I will still survive. A need is something that if I don't have, I will not survive. And it has Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Physiologic needs, health, then safety, always trump a want. When a party's wants are in conflict with another party's basic needs, the wants in the other party is always morally wrong. Case in point is legality of laws and compromise 1850, Jim Crow in the South. Legal right does not always equal moral right. So the question should stay whether the conflict comes from a want of lights for entertainment versus physiologic needs for peace, health, and safety of that neighborhood. Now, NUSD has a statement on bullying. I won't get into it completely by reading the whole thing, but I think with the way this whole process has gone, I think we're really on the precipice of demonstrating bullying, legal bullying, to a lot of members of the community. My biggest concern is demonstrating to the students that are present and in the high schools tonight that a want and achieving a want is greater than achieving needs of people around you. That lack of compassion is going to disrupt this community, and I don't want to see that. Thank you.